When I was a kid, TikTok was the sound a clock made.
When I was a kid doesn't really work when talking to your kids about marijuana today.
When I was a kid, social media was passing notes in class.
Download the MJ Talk Kit at sharedfuturecoalition.org.
Deschutes County is an amazing place to live.
Ease of access.
Work and play.
Great place to raise a family.
I love the weather and the high density.
At Deschutes County, we provide excellent service.
Beautiful.
We're here to help you.
Deschutes County is the heart of Oregon.
Everyone wants to be here.
Episode 37. This is the Inside Deschutes County podcast. We thank you so much for listening. I'm Eric Breon. Well, we're bringing you this podcast from the Deschutes Services Building in downtown Bend, Oregon. Lots happening across our county. The general election happening in just a matter of weeks. Just a reminder, DeschutesCounty.gov/elections is your place for election information, ballot box locations, so much more. Remember to vote early. I know that's what County Clerk Steve Dennison would tell you. We hope to get him on the podcast right before the election to tell us how things are going. But on this episode, we welcome a man who's also been a part of an election in Deschutes County, District Attorney Steve Gunnels. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're a busy man.
That is true.
We really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning. You were elected not too long ago, 2022.
Right. I was elected in 2022 and was sworn in as district attorney here in Deschutes County in January of 23. And I've been DA now for coming up on 2 years.
Did I read right? 28 years as a prosecutor before that?
That's right. I just passed my 30 years as a prosecutor in April. So I've been around a while, all of that time here in Deschutes County.
I was going to ask that, all in Deschutes County.
Yep, and
Wow.
I'm very proud of that. That it's unusual, as probably everybody knows, to stick with a career in one place for that long. And it's been a challenging career. I've loved my career as a prosecutor, and I'm enjoying my time as district attorney as well.
Well, let me start by asking you, how's it going? How is the transition from going prosecutor to district attorney?
Yeah, it's, I still view myself as a prosecutor. I was what we call in the profession a line prosecutor for 28 years. I was chief deputy district attorney here in Deschutes County for the last 20 of those years. Which is a supervisory position, but also a position where I had involvement in really all of the major cases in Deschutes County. And so that was a very rewarding position for me. I loved it. I loved being involved in investigations on the high-end cases, the murder cases, other kinds of high-end crime. And then transitioning into the district attorney's role, it's really interesting. I've been next to that position for a long time, but being the ultimate decision maker in the office is very different. Having to be not just the person who's advising the district attorney on decisions, but the one who actually has to own it is surprisingly different.
You're the face. I mean, you're the face of all those decisions, right? I mean, it's a tougher job than you expected?
In some ways, I would say yes. I would say being the decider on major issues within the office is a difficult thing, at least to adjust to. And I think I have adjusted to that role. Also being, as you say, the face and responding to media requests, for example, for interviews, for information about cases. That's been something that I had, frankly, appreciated not having to do for the rest of my career.
Right, because you're everywhere now. I see you all the time.
That doesn't please me. I don't want to be everywhere. I've always said, as a prosecutor, as what I would call a real prosecutor when I was chief deputy, and before, I had always said the public should hear about what the DA's office is doing when we put a big number on a bad person.
Sure.
And other than that, we should be fairly low profile.
Behind the scenes, kind of.
Yeah. But the public does have obviously the right to inquire about the cases that are going. That's all in the public eye. And there are many cases that are interesting to the public that we get asked about by media in particular. And so I don't believe I've ever said no comment on an inquiry to this point. There could be a point where that happens if somebody's asking about case facts, about a pending investigation or something, but that hasn't happened yet.
What are the biggest challenges facing your office right now when it comes to, I don't know, maybe prosecuting crimes, but are there anything specific that you go, man, I wish we could just get that fixed, get that done? What are the challenges facing you?
So many.
Yeah, there's probably a ton.
There are a ton. One of the big things that's been in the news quite a bit is the public defense shortage.
I was going to ask you about that. 150-ish?
Yeah, about 150 cases right now that we have filed, the district attorney's office has filed in circuit court, where there is no public defender to take the case because of the public defense crisis or public defense shortage in the state of Oregon. Part of that has to do with not having enough attorneys to take cases, and part of that has to do with the metric that's being imposed on public defense services around the state by the Oregon Public Defense Commission.
Like in terms of their caseload, or?
Right. The Oregon Public Defense Commission established a new metric, which is called a MAC, a maximum acceptable caseload, per attorney receiving indigent defense contracts. And so they set an artificial number for the number of cases that a defense attorney could take, and that number in many counties, including ours, doesn't meet the needs of the system, so that there aren't enough attorneys to take the cases that we have. And so right now there are 150 cases just hanging out there waiting for a defense attorney to be appointed. Our courts have done a fantastic job of working with our local public defense services. We have a public defender's office, and we have two big what are called consortia of attorneys, law firms, basically, of attorneys that take public defense cases. And all of those entities locally have really pitched in and done yeoman's work trying to cover these cases. The frustration that I have is this metric that's being imposed on our local public defenders by the state of Oregon, by OPDC, that doesn't meet the needs of the system. We need to have a public defense service that can actually take all of the cases that are filed.
Because there's a deadline to get these done, right? I mean, the clock starts ticking.
Yeah, the clock starts ticking really as soon as the case gets investigated. And once we file a charge and the person comes to court, we have basically 6 months to get a public defender on the case, or the court will dismiss the case, which is, to me, as a prosecutor, it is completely unacceptable that we have a system that won't do its fundamental duty, which is to provide attorneys for indigent defendants. And the result of that is a threat to public safety, where people are going to have charges dismissed that are
could be anything.
Just in the last couple of weeks, I've seen cases that are restraining order violations. So you have domestic violence restraining order, where somebody has gone to the effort to get that protection of a restraining order from the court. The individual is alleged to have violated it by making contact, making threats, what have you, to the person. Police have done their job, made the arrest. The DA's office has done their job. We've reviewed it and charged it. And our system can't do its job by appointing an attorney to represent the person accused of the crime. If that case gets dismissed, that is a big public safety threat. We also have DUIs and other crimes in the system that are subject to that 180-day limit on floating through without an attorney, and that keeps me up at night worrying about those cases.
Yeah, so what can be done? Is there, I mean, I don't know the system, but is there, you can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden have more defense attorneys. I guess it would be the rule as to how many hours they can take on or cases.
Yeah, the real problem, as I see it, has to do with that metric that I've been referring to. And you can add attorneys, and if you add attorneys, you would increase the number of total cases that could be handled. But more to the point, I believe that the numbers that are imposed on the firms have to be loosened. The legislature is very involved in this process. I know that our local legislators are very concerned about what's going on here. And as I understand it, the governor's office has also weighed in with deep concern. This actually becomes the governor's problem, so to speak, in January when the responsibilities over the Oregon Public Defense Commission become one of the governor's duties. And I am hopeful that the governor can kind of impose some rationality to this process. And I believe that the legislature will be weighing in come January when they open the next session.
A lot more to come on this.
A lot more, and I hope it can be resolved. I know that our court staff is working overtime trying to get attorneys to take cases, and there's kind of a mission on their end, our local courts, to solve this so that we don't have any cases dismissed. I really am hopeful that we can get at least that minimum system response to this problem so that we don't have cases dismissed, because that would just be a miscarriage of justice all the way down.
Wow. What other trends or issues are you seeing right now in Deschutes County? Obviously, that's a big one, concern. But do you have other things in terms of the kind of cases that you're prosecuting that you're noticing in your office in terms of the types of the crimes that you're seeing or the stats or the trends in Deschutes County?
Yeah, a couple of things we've seen since 2019, really. 2019, if you're looking at criminal justice statistics, 2019 is the last normal year, and everything after that is in relation to 2019, because that was obviously 2019 is the pre-COVID year.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
And everything changed in criminal justice in 2020 in a variety of different ways. In Oregon, we had Measure 110 that was passed, and Measure 110 is the ballot measure approved by the voters, that one of the things it did is decriminalize the possession of user amounts of drugs, which is the vast majority of drug possession cases that we typically file prior to Measure 110. And another trend we saw that is a little bit related, but it's a national trend as well, is we had the kind of the onslaught of fentanyl overdose deaths in the United States, in Oregon, in Deschutes County, where we had, in Deschutes County, the rate of overdose death went from 2 per 100,000 to 12 per 100,000 between 2019 and today, which is...
That's a big jump.
That's a humongous jump.
Yeah.
That is, unacceptable.
Massive.
And fentanyl is, along with methamphetamine, those are the two drugs that we see the most often in street cases where we are going after drug dealers in particular. The Oregon legislature in the spring passed new legislation that attempts to fix the problem of Measure 110. Measure 110's problem really was that it had no accountability. There was a referral to treatment, but no consequence if a person didn't follow through with it. In the spring, the Oregon legislature passed and the governor signed House Bill 4002, which recriminalized the possession of user amounts of drugs. And it set up a process whereby law enforcement could intervene, could make an arrest, could issue a citation to the person, and could choose to deflect a person. It's called a deflection program, and we have one set up here in Deschutes County run by the sheriff's office where the individual could be deflected immediately into treatment so that there's a handoff on day one from street use of drugs to a treatment provider where the individual can get services, can get treatment, and can get clean and sober.
I was going to ask you about that program. So you're in support of that.
Oh, yes.
And it's been valuable so far? You're seeing an impact?
We are seeing an impact. I would say not as much of an impact as I had expected, but it's slow to get things up and running and to get law enforcement trained in how the process works. And that training has happened. So in the past few weeks, really, we've had a dozen cases that have been referred to deflection in Deschutes County, which is frankly 12 more than we would have had during the Measure 110 time. We've had 12 individuals referred. We've had a high level of success. We've had basically 10 people who are successfully on track. We've had only 2 of those 12 who appear not to be interested in actually following through with it, which is a better success rate than we're used to in drug treatment, frankly, where somebody's referred and it actually follows through all the way. But I'm very hopeful because we have really good treatment providers on this, and law enforcement is supportive of it. We need to see results for law enforcement really to buy into this program. I think we will if we continue with it. And my ultimate goal is to reduce the number of overdose deaths and, to clean up the streets. I cannot accept the people using drugs in public, selling drugs in public, trading drugs in public. That is not an acceptable way to live around here. This is where I grew up. I don't want to live in a place where you see somebody getting a needle ready to inject some horrible drug into their veins out when you're walking with your family down the street or through the park. That is not how I view Deschutes County and how Deschutes County should be.
Right. Yeah, they get deflected to county services, any services in terms of behavioral health or mental health resources? Is that?
They get deflected to drug treatment providers who are part of the deflection program. The Deschutes County Sheriff actually coordinates the program and makes referrals to drug treatment programs. And if the person needs mental health counseling, there will be a separate referral and likely to Deschutes County Behavioral Health as well.
You and I have talked, not a fun topic, but you and I have talked before about the homicide rate in Deschutes County. Can you talk about where that's at right now?
Yeah, that is another disturbing trend that happened since 2019. In 2019, we had one murder, and obviously one murder is one murder too many for any community. But 0 to 2 was the norm for the 30 years prior to 2019. And we would have, in a bad year during my career, we would have 2 murders here. And in a good year, we would have 0. And that was, a kind of a 0 was kind of the default number. And anything above that was, all hands on deck. We got a problem. In 2020, the number of murders we had here in Deschutes County jumped up to 4. In 21, we had 4 again. Both of those numbers were, for us, very high. and a big blow to law enforcement resources here because we're not built for a lot of murder. Frankly, those are very resource intensive cases. But our law enforcement jumped in. They investigated those cases. We prosecute those cases, and successfully. In 2022, the number ballooned up to 8 murders that year, which was just mind-boggling to me. I went out on all of those murders, and it was basically every other weekend we had a murder from spring to fall, and it was otherworldly, frankly, to have that here in Deschutes County. In big cities, there's an expectation that there's going to be a more significant homicide rate than we have here. But in Deschutes County, that was extraordinarily concerning to me and to the DA's office and to law enforcement. Like, we were kind of looking around at each other at crime scenes saying, what is going on? There was almost it felt like a mass psychosis happening where people were kind of losing it. Every one of the murders during this time period involved drugs and mental illness, and that seemed to be those seemed to be the common threads. In 2023, last year, again, the number dropped down to 4, which is high, and this year we've had 3 so far. Which, if I could wave a magic wand, that number would stop, and we would have no more murders throughout my career. I don't know if that's even possible anymore. I am hopeful, though, that with the recriminalization of drugs, kind of pushing the drugs out of the public view and less accessible to people, that the murder rate will drop.
Population growth has to be a part of it, and then of course, you talked about the influx of fentanyl and those kinds of things. So I imagine that's probably big impact.
Yeah, it does have impact. The population growth obviously has impact on the number of murders, but I can't explain that meteoric rise that we've had since 2020 as simply population growth. We haven't quadrupled in size since 2020 here in Deschutes County. It may feel like it when you're trying to commute into work, but that's not actually what's happening.
From 5 minutes to 20.
Right, exactly.
There's more to the DA's office than just prosecuting crimes, though. Can you talk a little bit about what your office does to help people who are victims of crimes?
Yeah, we have victim assistance program here in Deschutes County that is very effective at notifying victims of their rights and talking to them about what will happen in the criminal justice process, because it's a very disorienting experience for most victims of crime to have to go through the process, whether it's a property crime, they've had something stolen from them, or a crime against a person where somebody's been injured, or, God forbid, a murder where the family is going through the process and trying to, figure out, just their basic needs at the time that they're also trying to hold somebody accountable for the harm that they've caused to this family. And our victim advocates do a fantastic job of helping victims through that process, filling out paperwork for them, letting the prosecutors on the case know what the victims are requesting, getting restitution for victims in appropriate cases, and also going to court with them when they need somebody to be there for them in that, that horrible moment when they're in court at arraignment or at sentencing, when they have to get up and speak to the person who did harm to them or to their loved one. And our victim advocates are a real asset to the victims of crime and to our county to help people who are going through really one of the worst moments of their life, to try to get them back to a more of a stable, back to normal lifestyle.
You must have a pretty incredible team.
We do. We have great people in the DA's office. I love our office. I love the people in our office. We are a very strong team right now. and we have been for a number of years now. We have excellent staff, attorneys, and victim advocates. Everybody in our office, I just without exception, I think is a great asset to the people of Deschutes County. We all have the same mission, which is to seek justice, and it's a great model, I think, for DA's offices to have kind of one mission statement that we all follow, and we're all on the same page. We can have disagreements within the office about the best way to approach a case, but it's always done in the spirit of let's do the right thing in this case, and it's just a discussion about what is the right thing in this case to achieve justice.
Switching gears a little bit, you're from Central Oregon. You're a Beav. Graduated from Redmond High?
Yes.
You're a Panther.
I'm a Panther, proud Panther.
How proud of you are you being able to serve the community now in this way as district attorney? Did you envision that growing up? When did all of that kind of hit you after you were elected to become district attorney of this county that you've served for so long, grew up in? That must have hit you at some point.
Yeah, it did, and it's every day it hits me. I did grow up here. I really grew up in Redmond. Went through the grades in Redmond. Graduated from Redmond High School, and certainly didn't envision being the district attorney. I probably didn't know what a district attorney was really when I was in high school, but I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. From the fifth grade, I was in Mr. Penhallow's class in fifth grade in John Tuck grade school, and I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. And the reason I did is because I always used to argue with my parents, and my parents always would say, joking, probably not thinking that they were having any.
You should be an attorney.
You should be an attorney. They probably didn't know that they were influencing my actual career decision or path, but I started thinking about that and thought, you know what? I do want to be an attorney. I went to Oregon State and was on that path the whole time to go to law school. I went to Georgetown Law School after Oregon State, and I came back home after that to be a deputy district attorney here in Deschutes County. And I've loved my career path ever since. When I actually went to law school, I didn't plan to be a prosecutor. I planned to work for some big firm back east, and then going to school back east taught me that I didn't want to be back east. I'm a West Coast person, and in particular, I'm a Central Oregon person. I grew up on a ranch, and living in Washington, D.C. for 3 years was lesson enough that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted for myself or for my eventual family. My wife also grew up here. We met while I was in law school, and we've raised a family here. We love this community, and it is a tremendous honor to be the district attorney here in Deschutes County.
Is your wife an attorney?
She is not. I don't know how.
I was going to ask how those dinner hour conversations go.
I know.
Who wins?
Yeah, neither wins. I know couples who are married to lawyers, and I don't know how they do that. They must be exceptional at setting aside their natural competitiveness.
Yeah, that'd be tough a little bit.
My wife is a registered nurse at St. Charles in Redmond. She's in the ICU in Redmond, and she,
nice.
She is kind of my rock. I rely on her to keep the family together, to keep us all grounded, and certainly to keep me grounded from day to day.
Well, you got to have that support, right? I mean, it's a big job.
Right.
What else do you do in your free time to kind of unwind from the stresses of this? Do you watch a bunch of crime shows, legal movies, Law and Order?
No.
Big Jack McCoy fan.
No.
Come on.
No.
Give me the scoop here.
I don't really enjoy that because I kind of get my.
That's too fake.
Yeah, it's probably like everybody when you actually do something for a living, when you watch it on television, the differences between reality and
it's huge.
And what they're showing is very irritating. It's a big difference. But my wife and we watch sports. Frankly, we watch baseball, every Mariners game that's on television.
You're a big baseball fan.
Big baseball fan. When I first met my wife, she didn't like baseball, but she didn't tell me that. She just kind of played along. I took her to an Elks game, maybe a couple of Elks games. The summer we started dating. She didn't let on that she didn't enjoy baseball, but she didn't. And then as time went on, she has become a bigger, more obsessive baseball fan than I am.
Than you?
And she loves the Mariners. She follows everything. Yeah, I know. It's a.
Will they ever make a World Series?
They will not in my lifetime. They will never make the World Series. But we love watching the Mariners anyway, and we just accept that they're going to be lovable losers for the rest of our lives. My wife and I also hike. When the kids are home, we go and hike. We do things with the kids. We watch sports with them. We watch whatever they want to watch, really, when they're home. All of our kids are out of the house now, which is not something that I'm very fond of. I loved having kids at home, but they're all successful and on a good path in life. They're all excellent kids and
awesome.
Happy.
Favorite legal movie?
So I've got two, really. So I would say To Kill a Mockingbird is a great movie, and it's a great book.
Pretty good one.
It's pretty good. And I think that the truest depiction of the courtroom is in My Cousin Vinny, which is kind of an unusual pick. I love the movie because I think it's hilarious, but also the courtroom scenes are pretty close. The direct examinations and cross examinations are pretty close to reality. Obviously, it's played up for laughs, a lot of it, but it's pretty tight, and I appreciate that part of it. I also just love the movie because it's a really good one.
It's been a while since I've seen that one.
You should watch it again.
I would have guessed more like A Few Good Men or Pelican's Brief or something like that.
A Few Good Men is a good movie also.
Yeah. Steve Gunnels, thank you for taking some time. Really appreciate it, for opening up, sharing some issues with the DA's office and the challenges and how you're going to approach those. And really appreciate your time today.
Anytime. Thank you.
My thanks again to our guest, District Attorney Steve Gunnels, for joining us. If you'd like to read more about what the DA's office does, or if you'd like information about victim services, or if you have any other questions, you can go to their website at dcda.us. That's dcda.us. Remember, you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Drop us a review, drop us a rating. We'd really appreciate it. Or you can find us at deschutes.org/podcast. But until next time, please be safe out there.